Mr Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll start at Grant Robertson.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. I wanted to refer back to the youth services model that's established in Part 1 of this bill, and in particular to talk about the concept of wraparound services. Now, on this side of the House, that's a concept that we support. Once upon a time, the other side of the House would have called that nanny state and said that it shouldn't be done, but they've come around to the idea that wraparound services are the way to deliver best to the difficult needs of many of the people who are being dealt with within this bill. And that's something that we should all welcome. These are what some of the officials sitting here tonight would call messy problems. Problems that don't have single solutions. Situations, wicked problems that have to be dealt with by a number of different interventions, a number of different programs. That is a good thing. But the model that's actually developed and proposed here absolutely scraps what has been the delivery of that kind of wraparound service model through the youth transition services. Through, as has already been talked about today, the fantastic work that Dale Williams has done in Otahanga, but also in other parts of the country. And I met with the Mayor of the Clutha district earlier this year when I was down there, a man named Brian Cadogan. And I don't know what Brian's politics are, but I have a suspicion, given where he's from and one or two other things, what they might be. And he's gutted by this bill. He is gutted by this legislation because he told me. He told me. That's how I know, is because he told me that he's gutted by what the government is doing to the youth transition services that have meant that in his district he's gone from having numerous young people out of work, no hope, wandering the streets, down, as he said, to one person. There was one person they couldn't find work for. One person they couldn't get into a training course using the youth transition services that are scrapped as part of this bill. And that's what I just don't understand about this. The youth transition, well, it is true, Minister, the youth transition services that have delivered in these communities are now being told, yes, you can still have funding. In fact, you can have more funding, but you can only deliver it to these 16 and 17-year-olds. You can only deliver it so that we can tick off, we the government can tick off and say, yes, we've achieved that, we've got that target, we've got that goal. Never mind those who miss out. Never mind the hundreds that the Gisborne Youth Transition Service have said they no longer will be able to deliver services to because of the model that is in Part 1 of this bill. And it's because the examples we were given time and time again as I've travelled around the country and talked to these providers is that young people don't live linear lives. I've got a member of my family who left school, age 17, to go into an apprenticeship. That was the deal for leaving school, was that he had to have something to go to, and he went into an apprenticeship. But that apprenticeship fell over after a period of time, and he drifted out of the worksite system. He drifted out of the sight of people. And we were able to find him support. Under this bill, at 18, he's outside of the system. And the people who work in the youth transition services say to us, that is a pattern that they see. And if we're going to wrap services around people, let's wrap services around people in need. Let's not set up artificial distinctions that can make the government look good if they fulfil them. Let's actually work with the young people to make sure that we deliver to them the things that will change and transform their lives. So I support a wraparound service model. I welcome that the government now sees that this is how services can and should be delivered. But let's deliver them in a way that builds on what we've got, which is a youth transition services around the country. And sure, we could do more and better with them, but let's build on what we've got and actually make sure that we use the communities that have bought into those services and make sure that we use their skills and their expertise. But instead what we see here is fitting people into a box. And the Minister said she wanted to give the power to people who can think outside of the box. These are the people who are thinking outside of the box, Minister, and they're the ones who are telling us, don't do this. Don't take away the ability for us to deliver to the full range of young people in our communities who need this support. But instead, no, it gets narrowed down. And it gets narrowed down to this goal around NCA Level 2. NCEA Level 2 may be totally unobtainable for some of these young people. It may be something that's completely outside of their orbit, yet we set that up as the goal, Mr Chair.
Grant Robertson.
Yet we set that up as the goal, and we set them up for failure. Students who have struggled at school, for whom NCEA has been part of the issue for them, they're the ones who are now being told NCEA Level 2, that's where you should go. And what's worse, Mr Chair, is that it's the providers who are now being given all the incentives to go for the kids who'll get to NCEA Level 2. That's where the incentives now are. And so it's a little bit like the whole national standards, national testing, teach to the test. Go for the thing that will deliver the extra funding, the extra bonuses, the ongoing contracts for the providers. Don't deliver so much to the community. Don't deliver so much to the need. Deliver to the prescription of the contract. And that's the problem here, Mr Chair, is that we've got a proposal, however well-intentioned it might be, that is ignoring the good models of work that are already on the ground, and that is putting in place provider provisions that will force those providers who want to do this work, who are well motivated, who have good records in most cases, will push them into an ever narrow set of measures. That's not what we need. It's not about ticking boxes. It's actually about making sure we deliver to those communities. And so it makes me very sad to see a situation where we don't build on what's good. Just because the Youth Transition Service was something that the Labour Party came up with, that the national government isn't inclined to build on that, build on the success of those services and actually bring young people through, whether they're 16, 17 or 18, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, this Part 1 of this bill is unfortunately predicated on a view that it's about blame, it's about dependence, it's not actually about getting alongside the young people. But worse than that, Mr Chair, it doesn't add up either. And we heard that in the House today. The Minister's had to admit that the Treasury advice says $285 million spent, $100 million saved. It doesn't stack up economically, it doesn't stack up socially alongside what we know about our communities and what we know works. And so I think Part 1 of this bill is wrong, it's flawed, and we could be having a debate here tonight around how we build on the strength of initiatives in the community that are currently working, and instead what we're doing is debating how the National Party can fulfil some goals and targets they've set for themselves, tick some boxes and say, we've done well for the young people of New Zealand, instead of actually delivering the services, the training and the community development that we need. And more than that, they won't deliver the hope for that. Mr Chair, I just want to finish with a reference to an SOP in the name of Megan Woods, and that is to amend Clause 20 and the new Section 157 in the definition of approved training. And what this speaks to is whether or not we're concerned about ticking the box of NCEA Level 2 or about what people can actually do and contribute. And Megan Woods' amendment adds in around approved training or trades training courses through the Skills for Canterbury package. A simple amendment that says, let's actually enable people to work on that Canterbury recovery as part of doing approved training under this program. It's a simple amendment, but it speaks to the idea that we actually should be doing what works, what's there to be done, and supports young people to develop their skills, not fit them into the box that the National Party wants to fit them into. We could be having the debate tonight about how to meet the skill needs of these young people, of how to make sure we've got the people who can work in Canterbury. Instead, what we're doing is debating an ideological solution in search of a problem, and that is the wrong approach to take when it comes to getting our young people back into work.
Alfred Naro.
Mr.